7 months, 14 hours and 39 minutes. That's how long the battle of evidence lasted at the election petition hearing. What is next? Welcome to today's big story. The show is brought to you by Blue Rose Limited, Shelter for All, and Star Life Assurance. My name is Bright Nana Amfo. Now, at long last, the battle of evidence has ended, and that's according to the president of the 9-member panel, Justice William Atugba. Now, he tells the EC that telling people to go to court, as he does, is not that simple. Atugba also announced that the parties have a 30th July 2013 deadline to finish their addresses. Later, that is Tony Later, suggested that parties be given a few more days to respond to each other's argument. The court is adjourned to 31st of July 2013. Let's recap a few scenes that happened in court.
In respect of which they've been granted leave to cross-examine after the witness brought in new documents. Now, my Lord, I cannot see how, therefore, these new pink sheets that are being shown to the witness can be relevant to the Exhibit X of the petitioners. In particular, where you have a pink sheet which does not have an exhibit number, neither on the top, nor does it even have a commissioner for old stamp. It doesn't have a commissioner for old stamp.
Sheet for that polling station. And we are trying to demonstrate to him that there are a number of pink sheets bearing the same name that do not have even that serial number. In this instance, we have demonstrated that there are 5. None of them has the serial number that they have introduced. That is what we are seeking to demonstrate.
With serial number.
Yes, and what I'm saying respectfully is that the serial number that is relevant is the number relevant to the Apostolic Revelation Society in Exhibit E with the polling station code C1411028. None of these 3 that is provided is that. None of those 3 things.
Species that they have introduced has no place in the scheme of things, and that is what we are seeking to demonstrate. It is a recently manufactured pink sheet, and that is what we seek to establish.
On the serial numbers, which are the headings of both Exhibit X and Exhibit EC11, and that your lordships gave permission for cross-examination to take place on the serial numbers, my lord. That was the purpose of the tendering and the discussions that took place, resulting in permission for further cross-examination to take place, my lord. So I'd like guidance from that, on that from your lordships, my lord.
Right, so some scenes from the final day of the battle of evidence there. Now, what does this mean for Ghana? Now, what should civil society do to ensure that we receive the verdict with that content? Now, let me go to the phone lines. The Executive Director for the West Africa Network for Peace Building, Dr. Emmanuel Bombandi, has just joined me. Thanks so much for joining today's big story. Now, first of all, at the very final stages of this whole thing, we had the judges telling the counsels of the petitioners and the respondent that their body language should not send a wrong signal to the mass supporters down there. Now, what do you see this advice? How timely is this as we wait for the ruling, the verdict?
Yeah, thank you so much, and good evening to you and to all your viewers. It's important that we appreciate the comment, the way you have framed it, for the reason that this is the time for us to be calm and to demonstrate that due process is part of what makes us a democratic state. And because we are a democratic state, the processes in the Supreme Court can end in a way that makes other people to be very satisfied with the outcome. But it can also end in a way that makes other people not to be satisfied because the verdict did not go their way. But that does not mean the behavior should then change, particularly, and become even violent, simply because the verdict did not go their way. So we are all expected to demonstrate a body language of calmness. And the way we should do it is when civil society continues the partnership with you in the media to send the message every day. That is a message of educating all our people, but particularly also calling on the leadership of our two main political parties to call upon their supporters to accept what the Supreme Court verdict would be as part of the democratic process, and that regardless of how the pronouncement is made, we all have to accept it and continue to build our nation and continue to consolidate our democracy. But yes.
You go ahead.
Yes, but in order to do that, we need to recognize that for some people, there will be some form of anxiety. And because there is that anxiety, people might tend to behave in a way that does not show that calmness and maturity to wait and to accept the pronouncement of the Supreme Court verdict.
Dr. Bombande, let me cut in rudely here. Now, in handling these people that you refer to as getting some kind of anxiety as a result of the verdict, how should it be done? In instances where the state has used its powers, it has ended in chaos. How should we handle such persons?
No, first of all, the first line of activity is the one of education, sensitization, and recalling to ourselves the mind of introspection. Who are we as Ghanaians? And what does it mean in terms of our behavior and comportment in the period leading up to the pronouncement of the Supreme Court verdict and immediately after that? And we should be able to do this in a way that reminds us that we are not separating it from the type of peacemaking and appeal for peace before the election. Because this post-election period has then moved on to a phase in which the Supreme Court is going to make a pronouncement. I think that is the first level.
Right.
But that first level must also be complemented with the safety and the protection of the people as it is provided by the Ghana Police Service. So that you cannot behave in an unruly manner and then tell everybody that it's because I had a fear and an anxiety, that's why I broke the law. That regardless of the appeal, if you behave in a manner that crosses the line to hurt your fellow Ghanaian and to break the law, you will be apprehended, and with impartiality and professionalism, you will be dealt with in the context of justice. And that's why this morning we talked about justice, peace, and reform as part of the processes building up to the National Summit that civil society under the auspices of the National Peace Council is putting together on Friday.
The consensus here, Dr. Bombande, is that civil society will continue to play that advocacy role, get to the people, raise education, create the awareness, let us live in peace. But these issues are not binding. The people listen to them, and when they are over, they go out there and begin to fight. How can we ensure that whatever civil society does will go a long way to ensure what we want to see is what we're seeing?
It's good that you mentioned the word psych, because part of the education is to make people be aware of their individual responsibility. But we all admit that there is a very important connection between the leadership of the parties and the behavior of their supporters. And that's why we must first of all continue to call on the leadership of the parties to be the first people to talk to their supporters and let them understand that it's not because you support a political party that you can do wrong and get away with it. And so from that individual responsibility, the appeal is how we conduct ourselves. But if you then cross a line and become irresponsible in your behavior, the same party leaders must be able to let their supporters know that when you are held accountable for your action, which is an individual action, the party cannot support you at that level, because then the party will be condoning wrongdoing.
Right.
And when people know that you cannot do wrong and your party will condone that wrongdoing, it will check them in terms of the way they behave. Right. And that is where in our local parlance we talk about chekuhu, in which you, the individual, must also behave responsibly even if you support a party. Right.
Dr. Bobade, kindly stay on the line for me. Let me cross over and speak to Mr. Yabwamia Samoa. He's a member of the legal team of the petitioners. Thanks so much, Mr. Bobamia Samoa, for speaking to us. Let's start this way. Now, the issue or the concern is that at the top hierarchy of political parties, the leadership will talk about unity. The leadership will talk about making sure that we live in peace. Down there, the masses, there is trouble. There's a disconnect between the top and the down. Now, in the situation we find ourselves, how do we ensure that the signal from the top does not end in the masses down there taken to the streets when perhaps the verdict is finally given?
What you are doing now, what civil society seeks to do with Mr. Bombande, and what GTV did by televising this trial live, clearly go to show to the whole population of Ghana that what's at stake is not decapitation, cutting of heads, but actually a joining of ideas. This is not only about political party supporters. It is about the entirety of Ghana, because there are over 11 million people who are supposed to have voted in this election. And their votes are what is being contested in court. I doubt if any single political party, assuming the 5 million each who voted for the party, are all members, paid up registered members of these political parties. It is not likely. And therefore, what we say is that this contention is about Ghana as a whole. And Ghana as a whole deserves, Ghana as a whole.
Mr. Bobby, if you can kindly turn your phone off. I'm getting a terrible feed in here from your end. It's better now. Go ahead, please.
What I'm saying is that Ghana as I doubt if afterwards, after 7 months, anybody will be, I also said, foolhardy. But it will be very difficult to ground a basis for action against the court decision, provided that if it satisfies the basic criteria of meeting the demands, rigorous demands of law, of upholding our democratic process, one man, one vote, in the sense that there are no infractions of electoral rules, and it entrenches confidence in elections as a way of changing our leaders, as well as finally being fair and just.
Right. Lawyer Boabiasamwa, just hold the line on for me. Let me go back to Dr. Bombande. Now, Dr. Bombande, some concerns have also been raised that we should get political parties to sign documents that when their supporters take to the streets as a result of whatever the outcome will be, they could be punished. Leadership could be punished, perhaps by the international community. Is this what you think can get us to where we want to go to?
Well, first of all, let me appreciate Lawyer Asamoah's further clarity in making it clear that it is actually about the whole of Ghana. And so sometimes when we talk about the supporters of the political parties, we could be limiting ourselves in bringing this individual responsibility and accountability to the rest of everybody is involved. It doesn't matter whether you are an active leader in a party or not. And having added on to the discussion with that further clarification, yes, it is true that leadership is important, and that when leaders get to understand that their actions and the messages they bring down to their people matters a lot, you can make the argument that you have suggested. But my way of looking at it is this: I have every confidence that the leaders of our political parties deeply love Ghana and will not want to do anything that will put Ghana on the state of pedestal that makes it impossible for them to stand shoulder high and count themselves as leaders of this country. And that is why, if we behave as if to say that we want to compel them to behave in a certain way, but it is not their voluntary submission to the type of behavior that must consolidate the peace, we could be making a mistake. I think declarations and commitments publicly are good, but I would prefer that a voluntary submission by our leaders to uphold peace and democracy should be what holds them above everything else, more accountable to their behavior and the messages that they send to their supporters, rather than saying that let's force them to sign a declaration, because that's the way then we can hold them accountable.
But Dr. Bombande, sometimes these public declarations and commitment do not work. We saw 2012, all the contestants stood on a platform and pledged peace, and yet there were a few spots that were unfortunate. So you still think we should stick to that?
You know what? It's interesting the way you have framed it. Don't forget that conflict prevention is also the work that we do not know what could have happened if we do not do what we did to prevent. So though you have made reference to the type of violence that you have described, it could have been 10 times worse if we do not see the leaders commit themselves through the type of public declarations they made. So in my view, it actually worked by reducing the violence and making it completely manageable and deepening to the extent that we're able to have the transition and we're able to sustain the peace that we have. And we want to do that after the Supreme Court verdict. But it is difficult at this time to say that the violence still happened, because don't forget that the violence could have happened in a manner that was uncontrollable. And we should be happy that even if there was violence in terms of skirmishes, we're able to deal with it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emmanuel Bombande, for talking to me. Let me go back to Lawyer Boabiasamwa, if you are there. Now, the honors, according to Dr. Bombande, is on the entire population of the country to get this thing done and deepen Ghana's democracy. Now, let me go back to the hearing. From your point, where you stand, how has it deepened Ghana's democracy?
I'm grateful. I didn't realize Dr. Bombande had earned his strips, and I called him Mr. Bombande before.
He's a doctor now.
Yeah, he's a doctor now. Congratulations to him. And indeed, his concerns are valid, but we must also appreciate that this country is in a steep learning curve. We haven't achieved a democratic pinnacle, if in fact there exists such a condition. It is always evolutionary. Change is probably the only constant, except that we must achieve and seek progressive change, qualitative change that grows us all the time. So declarations have their space in that process. At the time a declaration is made, it may have a very important impact in dealing with a brewing situation at that time. It's an intangible, so you may not see the impact of co-equal dialogue or inter-dialogue amongst leadership. But when you have a platform, for example, for a declaration which brings the leaders together, it sends a very heavy, strong signal to those behind that indeed it's not a matter of life and death, it's not a matter of cutting heads, but it's a matter of joining ideas and determining which ideas best meet the welfare needs of our people. So yes, we may not sign declarations. Yes, we may not be seen to be committing ourselves to something that is unenforceable by anybody. But the very signal, the very platform, for example, going to court on this matter, it's not so easy. It's not so straightforward. Now it's almost over. One may think it's simple. But the very boldness and courage to go to court and test the institutions. Here we are now. We are in a situation where all of Ghana has benefited even from looking at how a court works. Before now, I'm sure many Ghanaians would be scared of court, be afraid of court, not even have enough confidence that you go to court and you get what you want. But now they've all seen their lordships, that their lordships are human, their lordships have a sense of humor, their lordships can also get angry, their lordships can actually manage the lawyers before them, and the lawyers and the clients before their lordships are confident that their lordships will give them a decision that accords with the effort they put in. So you will find that this process will change many of us in this country. It will change our perceptions about law. It will change our perceptions about politics. It will indeed change our perceptions about what our democracy is founded on. I think it's a very important process. I believe we should write about it. We should talk about it. We should discuss it. But above all, we should see it as a growing process, because we are indeed evolving as a democracy. And in Ghana, we should be proud of ourselves.
Briefly before I let you go, for 7 months and 14 hours and 39 minutes, you and your team, as well as the respondents, were in court. Now, how do you feel after this battle of evidence has ended as a Ghanaian?
It's not over yet. The addresses, the hard work of putting addresses together has to come. And then, of course, the justices have to retire and deal with this very complex matter. But I can assure you that today, when Mr. Addison, after finally putting his way past his lordships and bringing the finger of God down to earth, said, "My cross-examination is over," I almost clapped. The sense of relief, the sense of happiness, the sense that we had been through this together was immense. We've learned so much. We've learned from the demeanor of the lawyers, the judges, the media. So much work has gone into this from all over the country. We could easily have been shooting each other.
Right.
We don't know how close we could have come to that. That singular act of saying, no, I want to test the Supreme Court has changed the destiny of this nation forever.
Thank you so much. Lawyer Boabia Samoa is a member of the legal team of the petitioners. They're talking to me about the battle of evidence ending at the election petition hearing. And of course, a lot more people of you have been speaking to us on how they feel about what happened. Let's listen to them. I'll come back and look at those of you who got to us via our social media platform.
Nothing better is going on. You see, go to the market, you just sit at the market and they go back. Where there have no people participating through this.
When you go to some offices and you want people to do something for you and they're watching the court proceedings, that delays a lot of time actually. But me personally, my only fear is about, these noises about war.
I'm not affected me because I care less about it. I'll accept it. Even as the president said, anyone who comes, because the power lies in the bosom of those judges. So.
Right, and a lot more of you have been talking to us via our social media platform on Facebook. I'm trying hard to read some of them to you. Quickly, let me go here and see what some of you told us by way of your answers to what has transpired today. The battle of evidence ending at the election petition hearing. Now, in Shiraba, Nanaya Santua says, so far, so very good. That's from Shiraba, Nanaya Santua. And then Cindy Moon says, it wasn't bad. It hasn't been bad at all. That's what you said. And then Isa Dede, how did it end? Well, what it means is that the evidence given in the election petition hearing has ended. The lawyers are retiring to put up their addresses before the judges will rule. Emmanuel Nanaban, you have sent me a very long message. I don't know how I can read it, but I guess all you want to say is that it's been so good for Ghana, there's no war, and we are in peace. And then Daniel Bedford says, yeah, finally, that's all you have to say. And then Imba Anthony Bashiru says, we're waiting for judgment. Kweku Dompre says, superb. Addison was fantastic. The battle is the Lord's. And then Isahaku Abdul Razak, you came in with very fruitful. And then Jay-Z Dibanj, you said, let's pray for our justices of our mother Ghana. Lawrence Obri Yabua it has been an eye-opener. And Kwesi Boat says, our electoral system will be cleaned after this. And then Ali Safula, he says, I think the most interesting thing in the whole issue is the last statement of the presiding judge to Afrajan after his discharge, which reads, now I hope you have seen all that the shout of go to court is not an easy thing to say after all. Afrajan should take a lesson from that noble statement. That's what you think. And then Bosheba Prince says, congrats to the 9 judges, petitioners, and 3 respondents for the good work done. But I believe it shall be well for supporters of the NDC. That is what you think. And then Godwin Kwame Webspan says, amazing. I admire the lovely gestures exhibited by the lawyers. I just hope that the supporters of the various parties will do same after the verdict is given. And you end by saying, God bless Ghana. And then Samira Ali says, Addison, my role model. Ghana comes first. The battle is the Lord's. Or Brimpon Kingsley says, Nanaban, well speaking brothers, we need guys like you to preach peace, but still victory is coming. And then Dasibra Nana Kwejo Flex the first says, we thank God for the peace he's giving to Ghana and the wonderful democratic display that went on at the Supreme Court, and blah, blah, blah. You have a lot of things to say, but let me cut it short and read others. And then Calvin Jesus says, fairness will surely bring peace, but partiality will bring nothing but otherwise. Praying for peace, one with God. And then Jerry Upon JB says, Addison, you are great. Frimpong Holy John says, the Supreme Court judges have really shown they have this nation at heart, and they will go deep into the case to find out who really won the mandate of Ghanaians on December 7, 2012. And this has been your big story for today. Don't forget that the show was brought to you by Blue Rose Limited, Shelter for All, and Star Life Assurance. My name is Bright Nanfu. Thanks so much for staying there for us. We have more on this network, but go to My Joy Online and you have more update on this particular issue. Good evening and see you later on.